Green room. There she is, Jourdan Rodrigue from The Athletic, who covers the Rams, kind enough to give us some of her time this morning. Jourdan, thanks. I'm Larry Krueger. This is Damon Bruce. Welcome to our 49er wake up show. We're eager to see this game. Damon and I are both kind of speculating as to what Shanahan and McVey may do schematically with so many guys out. Why don't we speculate on your guys' side of the thing? What do you think? Are we going to see Kyren in the slot? Are we going to see more Blake Corum? What wrinkles is McVey gonna bust out on Sunday?
Good morning, guys. I'm playing guard, so surprise. No, they have no healthy players, really. I mean, it's actually one of the most astounding things I've ever seen this early in the season. Obviously, I know the 49ers are dealing with this as well, especially with some key stars. But yeah, they're going to have to adjust. What in the past they've historically done is they've loaded up in 12 personnel. This has been maybe November in 2021 when they were really banged up and couldn't run the ball. A couple times in 2018, they have loaded up in 12 personnel. They've run the ball. They've used extra linemen. The problem is that their second tight end, Davis Allen, is not practicing with back spasms. He's also subtly on the injury report, which is something that's pretty significant considering they don't have that solution now. And then they have no extra tackles. So you can't really adjust in the way that this team has been used to adjusting. I think you're going to see a lot of the screen game. I think you're going to see a lot of quick passes with Matthew Stafford. They really have to get their screen game off the ground because they're not running the ball effectively. They're not getting much movement up front. So Jordan Whittington, I think, will be a big factor in that. And you probably will see a little bit more of a mixture of Kyren Williams and Blake Corum, because again, using both backs as pass catchers, but the pass protection element and just the experience there is part of the reason why we haven't seen that much Blake Corum so far.
Jourdan, it sounds like this game is going to be the ultimate test of attrition. Dealing with a game day injury, as injured as both these teams are walking in to this game, is going to be pretty devastating. I mean, if somebody goes down on the Rams offensive line, I mean, how quickly can Andrew Whitworth leave wherever he was on Thursday Night Football and get back to SoFi?
I mean, I told you guys it's me. I'm the backup. No, I'm just kidding. And I'm sure I am sure that they've exchanged texts, and Whit has very politely multiple times said to fans, guys, I'm not coming back. I'm not coming back. But yeah, they're down to their third left guard at this point. Logan Bruss, he was a 3rd round pick a couple of years ago, but he actually has not yet made the 53-man roster until this season. And so that's troublesome. Alaric Jackson's back on the left side, so that's at least solid, but he's been suspended for 2 weeks. He has not played any football. And they obviously don't play starters in the preseason. So he's not played any football since last year. And then, the right side is also dealing with injuries, and there's a rookie at center. So so much is going to fall on Matthew Stafford's shoulders in terms of that O-line cohesion. And if they can't get him protected, they have nothing, because if he can at least get the ball out, they have a shot because he's just that good of a quarterback. But if he's just getting killed every snap, then they're in serious trouble down the stretch, and their backups don't have any experience either.
Chris Shula, Don Shula's grandson, is the defensive coordinator, and him and McVey, I think, go back to Miami of Ohio together. And it's funny, there's no Aaron Donald, but Byron Young and Jared Verse, I think, are going to wreck shop in this league for a long time. Verse is a 1st-round pick this year. Young was a 3rd-round pick last year. And to me, this is where it starts up front for the Niners. I mean, they're going to have to get those two guys blocked. What have they looked like so far?
Yeah, they're going to be a very good tandem, like you mentioned, particularly in the pass rush. But they kind of put on tape last week that if a team can get a lead on them and then start running the ball, this is a front defensive line, particularly minus Aaron Donald, that's having some real significant issues defending the run. And that includes Byron Young, and that includes Jared Verse, who have been such a bright spot in terms of their talent potential, but there's a lot of learning still to do in terms of, protecting gap integrity and protecting, not overcommitting to a play action. You saw that a couple times in Detroit in that overtime loss. And I think that's why you started to see Michael Hoyt sub in, just more experience there, sub in a little bit more for Byron Young. And that front, I mean, Bobby Brown is their biggest player, literally their biggest player. And he's also dealing with an ankle injury. This is a smaller front line. The Rams have played that way for a little while with a lot of success, again, because you have Aaron Donald, who can, close multiple gaps at one time against the run, but you don't have that anymore. And so those guys, I saw them in practice and after practice, after practice all week this week, practicing and that technical work, really studying gaps, using the overturned garbage can looking equipment, ball buckets as like simulating offensive linemen, really studying gaps and technical work because the technique was just not sound. And that's actually, I think the number one difference in this game is San Francisco sees this all over tape and is going to try to just hammer the ball so that Brock Purdy is not pressured in similar ways that he was last week.
I think Sean McVay needs to steal a possession maybe in this game, a fake punt, something, razzle dazzle. If he's got any wide receiver who can throw a ball, maybe there's a trick play coming that way. Maybe there's a running back throwing a ball this week. It feels like for a team that absolutely was like a late entry into the possible NFC West champions. We don't want to pick the Niners. Let's consider the Rams. It felt like the Rams became a very late in the preseason she pick to be a really good team this year. And they had the pieces, but there's so few pieces available. What is the level of desperation that an 0-2 Sean McVay is feeling and projecting on this team? Because as banged up as they are, the fact they're 0-2 kind of terrifies me because 0-2 does bring out the most desperate best in all like professional teams.
Yeah, I think it's something like 8 teams in the last 74 0-2 teams have actually made the postseason, and only 2 in the last 5 years, and neither of them were the Rams because they usually get off to a really good start. That's a really good question that you ask because in 2022, the Rams went through a similar situation. It wasn't as compounded as this was. It was extended over basically the first half of the season, and they really didn't get any juice back or any sense of joy back really until they just shut everyone down and signed Baker Mayfield. And that's not going to happen. It's way too early in the season to even be talking about that kind of a thing. But I'd like to see if what Sean McVay has learned from that time. I'd like to see, okay, are you just going to go and forgive me, F it mode and just start throwing the kitchen sink at these answers and solutions, playing really free, fundamentally sound, but like really free football and just trying things in every phase. And I think defense, you really just want to see the technique get better. But on special teams, like you mentioned, and then also on the offensive side where he has an extensive ideas book, right? Let's see some of it. Let's see what you can just try. What do you have to lose? Literally at this point, you have no players. You're 0-2, just try stuff. That's what I'd like to see.
I'm a big fan of McVay. It's funny, McVay and Shanahan started at the same time. McVay's got the Super Bowl. Shanahan's still looking for his, but Shanahan's had the upper hand head-to-head against McVay. What's it like to cover McVay? How is he down there around the media?
Oh, he's great. Yeah, he's super. You never see him rattled. I mean, you see him pissed, but you never see him get rattled. He's not combative. He's probably a lot like how it is with Kyle. Honestly, I watch a lot of Kyle Shanahan's press conferences, obviously. And then when I was doing the Play Callers audio series, then got to know Kyle a little bit better. And they're very similar to me with how their perspective of how they talk about football. They seem very open about it. Because I just think they don't think that other people can do the things that they do. And so they're open about kind of what, without giving game planning away, they're open about their process and why they do things the way that they do. Sean's very much like that. It is always tight around here during 49ers week. So that's definitely permeating through the facility right now, but I assume it's the same on the other side.
Jourdan, before you joined us, actually right as you were joining us, Larry and I were talking about the very cause celeb topic of banning the too high safety. Should there be a rule change to help? The NFL has been suffering this dearth of offense for 2 whole weeks, and fantasy managers are upset. And should they change rule? And it's ridiculous. I would like to read something to you that you wrote that I thought was brilliant. When you were responding to Bill Barnwell, basically reacting to this question, and you basically said offenses are asking defenses more questions than ever, but defenses have gotten better than ever at hiding their real answer, showing their real answer, and it better be, it's getting better because they can basically. They've got more guys who can play in multiple directions playing in a defense than ever before. What do you make of a league-wide lack of touchdowns I also think it's a total bastardization of a preseason, which, let's face it, teams just full on punt on these days. And I think the first 4 weeks of every season now is going to be the new sort of default preseason.
Yeah, you can, to that point, you can really see, ironically, we're talking about two of the most injured teams in the league right now, but you could really see teams trying to protect their bodies too as the seasons get longer. So the league created this. That is my stance. The league created this, and you can't be annoyed about it if you're the league because you made this happen. On the too high stuff. Okay, first of all, I would love for people to go watch when defenses are actually in too high, because more often than not, they're rotating out of that look. It's called a shell for a reason, because you can literally crank either side of that shell. I describe it as a closing umbrella. So if you picture an umbrella over the back of a defense, it shuts down over the tops of routes. You could shut one side or another, or you could flip around or whatever you want to do if you're a defensive coordinator. And the reason why this is confusing for offenses is because the defense is not moving pre-snap in a reaction to the information gathering process of what the offenses are doing. So when you're seeing people in motion, or you're seeing different formations on either side of the stack in the middle, that's all information gathering from the offense. That's the offense asking the defense a question. How are you going to react if I show you this look? You could do only so much of that, as we know, with the running clock pre-snap. Well, now, defenses are not moving, which means they're hiding their answers to that type of thing. They're traveling like a third safety, or a motion man is what I like to call it, on the defense, so that you actually are only getting a reaction from one player who's not fully showing you what coverage the rest of the defense is going to be in. And there's hybrid players who can close other voids and spaces in the field. And you're watching teams like the Chiefs, for example, and the Dolphins did this last year. They're using speed players now to try to kind of mitigate some of the offensive line issues that we're seeing league wide, in order to get the same route layers down the field without necessarily knowing the information of the defense, but they understand zoning teams and where they're going to drop. So they're trying to get their players basically to run past them, and the drop is too deep, with the same amount of drops in the quarterback's step, to make it look like it's a longer play than it actually is, but you can still get the receiver to the longer play point. I'm rambling, I'm sorry, but I'm very passionate about this. It's annoying to me that there's panic about this. It is a good thing that defenses are smarter. It's also a good thing that offenses are having to look long and hard at terrible offensive line play across the league, minus the rock star that you guys have over there in San Francisco. And they're having to really look at what ways you can hide your own limitations while also dealing with defenses that are more hybrid and multiple, have more answers to the questions they're being asked than ever. That's a good thing. That forces evolution. Look at what the Cardinals are doing. Look at even what the Chargers are doing. Like we're cycling back to loading up and pushing people around and running the ball out of multiple personnel, like the 49ers have done, like the Rams started to do last year. That is going to start this cycle all over again, and everything will be fine. Nobody panic, because in 7 more years or 5 more years, some new hotshot coach is going to be out here running like four receiver sets, or the league is going to change another motion rule or whatever. It's going to be fine. The league will not have this lack of offense for long. Everything cycles back around, but it's a good thing that defenses are smarter and able to do this.
Something tells me if you can still bet on this league, it's going to be all right. You know, as long as you can wager on it, I think the league's going to survive. Jimmy G, how's he fitting in down there?
Yeah, they like him a lot. He just kind of, I think there's always such a crowd around, I'm sure you guys got used to this. There's always like such a crowd of attention that kind of follows him everywhere. I've become aware that there's like 6,000 fan accounts dedicated to him or something. Like,
it's the curse of being painfully handsome. It's something that Larry and I both deal with. It's like
it's an occupational hazard.
It's like in 30 Rock, like John Hamm's character, when like everyone's super nice to him because he's handsome, but he's just like, I'm not saying Jimmy's like this, but like he's a disaster at life, but like he has just like the best life ever, because everyone's just like, oh my God, you're so handsome. We have to treat you amazing. And so I'm not saying Jimmy's like this, but it does remind me of that 30 Rock episode. But I think like he's super normal. He seems super normal, which I don't think people, other quarterbacks in the room were just really delighted to discover. He's a good dude. I kind of joked that like Sean McVay built a quarterback's room of people he just wants to go have a beer with. I think he misses a little bit working in those little Shanahan rooms where like all of them are friends and fighting with each other all the time. And so now he's built his quarterback's room where it's like, oh yeah, we're gonna, just talk football all the time and be nerds. And like that's what this quarterback's room is. So it's been fun to watch. They all seem to get along well. Jimmy seems like really enjoying the fact that the pressure is not literally and metaphorically on him right now. So haven't really gotten to know him much because he was suspended, so he wasn't around, but he seems to be fitting in really well.
It's such an interesting matchup because we don't really know what we're going to see, right? 49ers have a bunch of guys hurt. The Rams have a bunch of guys hurt. Shanahan knows McVay. McVay knows Shanahan. The one thing that we do know we're going to see is probably about 3 out of 4 people in the building rooting for the Niners. What's that vibe like down there with the Rams, the Raider fans, the Charger fans, the Niner fans? The place is according to the reports, it's going to be 3/4 Niner fans. That can't be something that the Rams and their organization like.
No, and it's interesting. They can't be super critical about it because it's for lack of being there for a certain amount of time. So internally, if you're Sean and you're Matthew, of course that probably irritates you. You should not ever have to be on a silent count at home, but you see it, with these games, and that's an issue. But you can't really say anything about it because you understand the reality is like, yes, the Rams won a Super Bowl and they have a growing and very passionate fan base, but they were gone from this region. And it's, a sports town that also features, one of the biggest baseball franchises on the planet and one of the most storied basketball franchises on the planet. And you have to kind of just face that reality that it's a long road to making sure that you're building back in a very substantial way because you were gone for so long. And so I do think that it's probably very irritating for them, more so than they say or probably feel comfortable talking about, because their boss was the one that built the $6 billion stadium on his own dime. So I think that's that it's complicated, but it is a thing. It is something I think are just kind of expecting and used to at this point, particularly with these and this 49ers crew coming to town.
Jourdan, on your way out today, can you tell us a little bit about how your Playmaker series came about? I thought it was fascinating. I got like a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old and very little time to spend on anything I want to do. But podcasts are easy for me. I can put in an earpiece and walk around and still deal. I listened to most of the Play Callers series, and what an interesting table that you got to put together with McVay and Shanahan and, Mike McDaniel, who was, he was just fresh off a season, his first year in Miami. Now he looks like he sells cocaine on episodes of Miami Vice. He just looks like such a South Beach guy. You can tell Miami's got their hooks into him. How did that even come about? What a great series that was. Congratulations with it.
Thank you very much. It was the coolest thing I've ever gotten to do. So many people were so gracious with their time with me, and I just was open with them. Like, I want to preserve this moment in football in time, and I want to do it in a way that brings people into it versus seeing it written on a page. I want people to hear these really passionate, smart football people talk about football, right? And man, did they deliver, right? Like Kyle's interview, it's still, I can't believe, first of all, that I survived it. Second of all, that like it was so intense but so cool, and just galaxy brain.
I don't know how you got him to relax. See, he put his guard down for you.
Yeah, it was just really, I was very humbled by that. But all of them did that, and I was very humbled by that. The idea first came about, though, somewhat ironically, because he's there in San Francisco now, was when I was watching the early days of Sean McVay and Brandon Staley battling each other. This was the first time the Fangio system was in Sean's building. And at that time, and the league is shifting again, as we've talked about, but at that time, that was the thing that everybody wanted a piece of because it beat Sean McVay. And so now, so I was standing on the sideline watching them install it, and the building had been shut down because it was the first wave of COVID. And so it was the first time anyone could be back on a field and play each other. And they were running like a live install, which meant that they were going best on best quite a lot. And watching all the pieces collide with each other, these ideas, it was so tense. And it was the beginning of the end for Jared Goff there as well, because Sean just felt like they weren't solving problems fast enough. And that all started in those moments of incredible intensity on this little tucked away field in Thousand Oaks, California, with all this wildlife taking over the building because no one had been in the damn building for the last 6 weeks or so. And so it was just so I thought, okay, that's happening right here. So that must have also happened back there when they were all in Washington together. So let's start there and go a little back and pay homage to Gary Kubiak and Mike Shanahan. And let's start to move forward and see like what happened next. How did these ideas and people collide with each other and build the sport that we're looking at today? And that's really where it came back in 2020, standing on the sideline behind the DBs and hearing everyone just how intense and the ideas and the concepts just like quite literally colliding with each other. It was very, very inspiring and something I really love about the sport and being a reporter is that you can see things like that and it changes you forever.
Jourdan, awesome stuff. By the way, I got to share the screen because I love your dog's face here on your Twitter.
Oh yeah, that's
she's
techie.
A good follow on Twitter. Jourdan Rodrigue, senior writer for The Athletic, covering the Rams, and we appreciate her stopping by. What's your dog's name?
I call him Tucky, but his name's Tucker. Yeah.
Oh, by the way, that's the link. That's the link right there to the Play Callers podcast. So it's still, I mean, imagine if you could go back in time and be like, you guys are going to be so good at what you do. They're going to be talking about outlawing 2 high safeties come week 2 next year.
Yeah. And you know what was cool doing those interviews? Like they still couldn't believe, they were like, why this doesn't feel like it's, a moment in NFL history. I'm like, it quite literally is a moment in NFL history, but you guys are in it. So you don't see it. And I remember when I told Matt LaFleur that, I'm like, dude, you're in it. So you can't see like really the impact that you're having. He kind of just like stared at me for a second. Like, I guess I'll take this crazy woman's word for it and just participate. Right. And then like, I'm so happy that this exists because they're going to look back on this at some point and be like, yeah, we combined and collided and we helped do that. And I think that's so cool.
Well, more of Jourdan, less of Damon.
Thanks for your
fans
time.
Are weighing in. More Jourdan, less Damon. Yeah, I said it. I'm being replaced in real time. So this is enough, Jourdan. Enough of you. Thanks very much. No, really appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. It's so nice to meet you. Appreciate your work. Thank you.
There you go. Have a great weekend. We appreciate you as well. Jourdan Rodrigue stopping by from The Athletic. She's a great follow on Twitter at Jourdan Rodrigue. It's JOURDAN Rodrigue, RODIRIGUE. Fantastic. And it was good to get a little behind the scenes on the Rams. And she was really, really good. I love some of the stuff that she writes too. And The Athletic really gets some outstanding people. I mean, they really do across the country. Obviously here we've got Matt Barrows, covering the Niners, but Jourdan does an amazing job in LA covering the Rams. So lots of good feedback from her.